Hello and welcome to Haway the podcast. It's Martin here, and we've got another Q&A episode for you today. We tried earlier in the week to get through a whole host of questions that you lovely people had sent in, and predictably we had a ton left. So we've assembled a crack team. Yes, that's a crack team of people who've got all of the answers, and some of them might even be the right ones. We'll get straight into it today by introducing our guests. And first of all, it is the voice of the pubcast. It's Sam. Hello, mate.
Hi, mate. All right. Yeah, I'm usually exclusively on the podcast, so I'm intrigued to see if my knowledge and opinions are better or worse when I've not had 5 pints. I'll see what happens.
Well, Sam, if you've got knowledge and or opinions, then I think everything will be absolutely fine. We've also got Jonny Hawley with us. Hello, Jonny.
Hello, Martin. Yes, I'm thrilled to be here, and it's very strange to see Sam not in that same Regis Labris, Reg Vardy t-shirt that I think he must have worn to the last, 500 matches in a row?
See, Sam, you're getting fashion critiques
give or
as well
take,
as everything else. So, we can do it all here on Haway the podcast. And joining us as well, we had the pleasure of his voice on the Q&A earlier in the week. It is Ant. Hello, mate.
Hello. Yeah, I'm just also to jump in on the Sam roasting. It's the first time I've seen him sober, so I've known him for 7 years now. So this is great. But yeah, cheers for having us back, mate.
It's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, isn't it? Sam.
How do you know I'm sober?
Right, I'm half expecting to see a pint somewhere, like. But yeah, all good. I am aware that
all you can say is this.
I am aware that I pronounced our new centre midfielder's name wrong, so I'm just going to call him our new centre midfielder for this podcast if he's getting mentioned. So all good, Martin.
And some people will take offence at that because we should have signed more people, so our new centre midfield player doesn't narrow it down too much. But we're in that situation where we've only got one in.
Should have signed more people so I could get their names wrong. Are you trying to say?
Well, that's right. No, we had enough trouble last summer with all of the names, didn't we?
Good grief.
Last while, so. There we go. Anyway, look, we've got tons of questions and we are going to get straight into them. And in the episode earlier in the week, we talked a lot about transfers. We talked a lot about the Ipswich game. And I'm sure we will come on to those topics as well. But Dan at DJ Horsley has asked about our wingers. And he said, witness both Angulo and Talby running down the wing and taking on players in the World Cup. Both appeared to be risk-averse at Ipswich, cutting back more often than not. Is this a tactical decision from high up or a lack of confidence in this squad? And Jonny, I think it's a really interesting point because we did see a few occasions on Saturday when our wingers did have the ball and they were maybe a little reluctant to really go ahead and attack. And, we've seen different bits of the game where that certainly when Talby came on, you could have driven down that left-hand side, got across it. And there was one break that we had in particular that stood out to me where he did seem to come back. Do you reckon that's a tactical thing is the question that Dan's asking, or if that's a lack of confidence or it's something else?
Yeah, well, it's a difficult question to work out, isn't it? Because obviously it's only the first game of the season. So who's to say whether it's tactical instructions or whether it's something that they've worked on or whatever, because we just don't. I know we've got last season, but new season, we should give them a fresh start, really, in terms of judging them for some of these trends. But I completely agree with you. I think it was very noticeable, particularly when Talby came on, because Angulo, obviously, he started the game, so he's not going to be any fresher than anybody else or whatever. But Talby coming on in the second half in a game where, I think most of us were fancying us to try and get a goal. You would have expected him to be, trying to break past his man with a bit more regularity. And it felt like it must have been a tactical instruction because it wasn't just one or two players doing it. It was the whole team, it felt like, as we were getting higher up the pitch, would stop and take a look around and recycle the ball quite often. Not every time. We did get in behind the defence a few times, but it was noticeable. And like I say, look, it's the first game of the season, so I'm not going to be, sat here panicking about long-term trends or whatever, but I would hope that it's not something that's being encouraged too much from the top down, because I don't want to see us playing that way if we can help it. I think we've been at our best when we have been high energy and getting at people and up in people's faces. And that goes for with the ball and without the ball. Like off the ball, when we snap at people and we've got people, getting at people's ankles or whatever, we're a problem to play against. And the same when we're attacking. If we're hitting you hard and direct, then we're a massively difficult proposition. But if we play like we did a lot of the time against Ipswich, then I think we're going to be quite easy to defend against. So, yeah, hopefully it was partly just because the game was one of them where we had so much of the ball that we almost didn't know what to do with it because we're not used to it. But yeah, hopefully that's something that we change pretty sharpish because it'll hamstring us if we don't.
I think that's an interesting thing, isn't it, Sam, when you look at the sort of the possession that we had, because last season for many of the games we didn't tend to have the bulk of possession, and our wingers, when they did attack well, they were doing so on the counter-attack where it had a little bit more space to run into, and attacking from those wide positions when you're facing a packed defence rather than facing one or two opponents, it's a bit of a different proposition, isn't it? And it did look like we were a little bit reluctant to do so. I made the point on the pod that we did with James Copley on Sunday that I don't reckon if we were presented with those two chances that we present Ipswich with, I don't reckon we score both of them because our intent wasn't there to really go and attack. And look, the reality is that, Brian Brobby puts one of those chances away in the second half. We win 2-1. The world's a happy place and nobody's talking about these sort of things. But it's interesting, isn't it, when you look at the attacking intent from the wings and the fact that we have been strongly linked with Katamo, who looks a very direct winger, who looks like somebody who can pick up the ball and drive it at defences, whether it's something that the club is actively looking to improve upon.
Yeah, I know it's been said a few times, but Ipswich played like us last season, where they sat in, they held a good shape, and then you saw in Fatawu and in Cecil, as soon as they got the ball, they just had one thing in their minds. And I know Johnny mentioned it, but I was more disappointed with Talby than Angulo, because I know Angulo wasn't great, obviously scored an amazing free kick, but he's not been given many opportunities. It felt like his first start. So I think for Talby to come on against tired legs, and he kept doing this thing, Talby, where he would square a defender up one-on-one and just sort of half knock it round them and run into them. He wasn't like trying to give and go with anyone. It just looked really strange. But yeah, I definitely think us being linked with Katamo, I think we definitely need him or someone like him from what I've seen. I'm not going to pretend I know too much about him, but I've seen highlights and he looks direct, and it's what we need at the minute, because I know it's only one game, but Ipswich I think we could have been playing for another hour, and unless it was a free kick or a corner, I don't think we'd have scored another goal.
Scoring from a corner? That'd be a novel thing, wouldn't it? We don't tend to do that too much. On the subject of wingers...
Well, Ballard was on the pitch, to be fair, so anything could happen.
Well, this is true. Yeah, we'll give him that. On the subject of wingers, and Eli734 with the username at Ian Brown, and Ian sent the question in the other day as well, but he's asked a question about Angulo, and says, what does Angulo offer on the ball? I'd have Mundell ahead of him in the pecking order. Now, Angulo scored the free kick. He didn't have the best of games. He certainly, up until he scored that free kick, his touch was a little loose and he was struggling to settle in. And I don't think in the Sunderland shirt we've seen anywhere near the best of him yet. Now, you've got to give him a bit of leeway in terms of coming from a different country, coming in January, trying to settle in, obviously picked up his injury. Mm-hmm. But we've all watched the World Cup. We've all seen what he can do, what his potential is. Romain Mundell's obviously just signed a new contract, hasn't he? That was announced yesterday, which was a contract till 2030. So he's got an extension, and the club obviously rate him highly enough to give him that. But Angulo, in terms of him being on the left wing, which was where he started on Saturday, what do you want to see from him, and what do you think he's capable of?
I think it's with all the wingers, really. We've just spent the last 5 minutes talking about Talby as well, and we know what Talby can do. We've seen what Talby did against Burnley last year when he cut in and hit that unstoppable shot that went in off the bar. Like, you just want them to play with a little bit of abandon, don't you? Like, I get this whole, like, play for the draw and all this stuff and all that. And I don't like. I've always said with football, you play to win, don't you? And you're right with Angulo. He's flattered to deceive so far in the Sunderland trip, hasn't he? Even though he has had his injury, but every time you've seen, there's something in him, but he doesn't. It looks as if he's a little bit scared to lose the ball. Like, he's trying too hard to, like, retain the ball all the time, and so he's not, like, taking any risks. Whereas I'd want him. You know what I've always said about my wingers. If my winger sort of 6-7 times out of 10 runs past a defender and puts a ball in, it doesn't matter what happens there, I'm happy. And then if the other 4 times he loses the ball, that happens. That's a winger. That's what happens with him. But with him so far, he just seems, and all of them are like this, because Mundle's the same. When Mundle plays for us in the Premier League, they seem scared to lose the ball, and I just want them to be more free. To be fair, like you say, run about like this Gini Katamo, and if that happens, he looks like he's just gonna be, this winger that I think we need, just someone who just runs and passes and gets the ball in the box. But we've had this, like, for the last few years. Patrick Roberts was the same one. He could be mint until he got into the box, and then he didn't know what to do. So it seems to be like a trend out with signing these wingers who, to a point, the class, and then it gets to the final third, and they haven't got a clue what to do. Which you're right, brings it back to the Angulo stuff. We saw what he did against Germany in the World Cup. Cut in, hit a hell of a shot, great goal, a fantastic goal. You just want to see them do that, don't you? Just have a go, because. If you don't, it's an old phrase, but if you don't buy a ticket, you're not going to win the lottery, are you? You know what I mean? Just have a pop.
No, that's absolutely right. Now, one person who unfortunately wasn't too afraid to give the ball away on Saturday was Luco 9. And Robin.
Oh,
well,
I don't think he meant it.
I know. Well, nobody does. Nobody means to give the ball away.
No.
But Robin said Luco 9's taking a lot of stick, which is correct. At the other end of the pitch, however, do you agree Brobby should have scored at least one of the 3 chances he had? For all 3, in my opinion, he was too slow in getting the shot away. And I'll stick with you to start with on this, because, again, we saw in the World Cup, I actually think we saw a different side of Brian Brobby in the World Cup, where he was maybe a little bit on the front foot. We saw an instinct to finish that we maybe haven't seen in the Sunderland shirt too much. And I think, for the majority of last season, he was kind of getting his way up to full fitness, wasn't he? There is a risk here, isn't it, that we as Johnny said, we've got a very small sample size of this season. And we all know that players take 3, 4, 5 games at the start of a new season to get back up to match sharpness, all that sort of stuff. But I think on another day, Brian Brobby would have expected to score at least 1 or 2 of those chances, and rather than not end up with anything.
Yeah, I think the big one was the one where Leif Davis got back, because there's a couple of things he could have done there, which, he could have initiated the contact, which would have got Leif Davis sent off because he was obviously the last man, which, there was a little bit of contact, wasn't it, but he stayed up, which I think that's kind of what Brian Brobby tries to do, doesn't he? He does try and use his strength and stay up sometimes instead of maybe initiating a foul, which I think would have been a red card. And but when he got past him, he did everything right there, because he got past him. He went into the right angle to open up the goal, but then he seemed to hesitate, and it allowed Leif Davis to get back and make it, which was a very good challenge. But it should have been out the way anyway, straight away. And I kind of think with him, you have seen his instinctive side with us. The Spurs away goal last year when Lafayette plays him through. It's a first time. It's a wonderful finish. And as you said in the World Cup, he was like a fox in a box, wasn't he? His goals were all like really good striker finishes. So it was disappointing. It was disappointing, but given them chances again, I think he puts them away. It's just one of those things. But it kind of summed us up, didn't it, on Saturday, where we were a little bit sort of slow, and he was probably, like I say, when the chances fell to him. Of them 3, I expect him to score 1, that's for sure. Especially how good he is, and I think he's going to have. I've said this on this pod, on other podcasts. I think he'll be in the top brackets of the goal scoring charts should he get the service. He got the service on Saturday, and he didn't really put them away. So, but I still, like I say, we're talking about one game, but I think he'll back on Sunday, so he'll be all right. But yeah, he probably should have had one out. I think he'll be disappointed as well. I think that's the main thing. He'd probably be disappointed he never got at least one of them in.
No, that's right. And Jonny Ant talked about that first chance he had. That was in the opening 3 or 4 minutes, I think, wasn't it? And if that works out differently, that scenario, the game's a completely different one. And when you look back at the replay, he obviously took us too far across Davis, who was coming back. And if he'd kept a little bit straighter, he would have been really clean through on goal, and it would be impossible for the defender to get back. But I think that chance he had in the second half, you wonder if that had come in from the right. Does he instinctively take that with his right foot? Came in from the left. He's got the split-second decision to make, whether he actually takes it on with his left foot or tries to protect it, turn and get it in. And obviously, if he had took it and turned and lashed it in the top corner, we'd have been saying, well done, Brian Brobby, wouldn't we? But when he doesn't, you're going, God, he could have took that first time, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and I completely agree with everything you were just saying about the first chance. Like, totally agree. And then the second chance, Martin, I pretty much entirely agree with you as well. So I think I'm not really needed this episode, lads. You could just say my opinions for us. But no, I agree. I think I've heard a few people kind of talking about, and it's a bit unfair to do this, but it's going to happen all season, right? Because we've got two kind of main striking options, and a lot of, well, if that was Wilson Isidore, that second chance, he probably does just fling a left foot at it, because his instinct is always just see ball, hit ball. It doesn't matter where he is, which can be a problem sometimes when he's like 30, 40 yards out or whatever. But again, it's one of those where you think maybe if he's a little bit more up to speed and feeling a bit sharper, does he fling a leg at that and just try and put it away? Maybe, but I think it's annoying because he kind of still does all right with it. Like he manages to get it under control. He does manage to turn and hold off. I think he's got one man at his back that he holds off. And then he turns and does try and get the finish away. But by that point, obviously, another defender's got in position and there's a good block. So, yeah, again, like it just comes back to the fact that he will know in his heart of hearts he should have scored one of them. I almost don't think it really matters which one, because they were both very presentable chances. I think the first one probably looks worse because it's a 1v1 and you can't, when you go clean through, we all just get excited and you're like, oh, probably going to score here. And then you don't. The second one, to be honest, it almost kind of goes back to the first thing you asked us as well about the kind of issues with the wingers and trying to get width and penetrating behind, because, oh, look, we finally create a chance for our striker inside sort of 6 yards. How do we do that? Working the ball down the left-hand side and getting in behind. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter how you get it there. It just matters that you get in behind that defence. Easier said than done, of course, but that's where the chance comes from. And I think, just to tie it back to what you were originally talking about with him in the World Cup as well, I think that you're right that we did see a little bit of a different side of Robbie, but I think that is because the service that they were giving him was a little bit better and a little bit more direct, because I can't remember which game it was, but one of his goals was a sort of cut back from the left, and then he just emphatically finishes it into the net kind of first time. But again, this is an example of you get the ball towards the byline, sort of level with the 18-yard box area. If you can get balls into the box from there, a little bit of pace on them. They don't even need to be like particularly accurate crosses either, really, as long as you can just get them into an area where a forward's going to be able to, have a little bit of a couple of steps run at it. You're going to cause problems. And Robbie showed that in that kind of system, it can be a proper handful. And yeah, again, like we didn't play to that against Ipswich. We seem to play for Wilson Isidore with Isidore on the bench and Robbie on the pitch, which, that's an interesting tactical approach. I'm not sure it'll work.
I'm not sure it'll catch on. And Sam, I'm going to chuck one in here for you. With the transfer window coming up, or the closure of it coming up, there's been all the talk about a right winger. There's been a bit of talk about a central defender, a left-sided central defender. The talk about a striker has gone relatively quiet, and obviously Mayenda left earlier in the summer. Surely we'll be bringing a striker in, you would have thought, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I always think it's difficult because what you're effectively after now is a third choice striker, which is who's going to come and do that. Do you know what I mean? I remember years ago we had the problem with Ross Stewart where he was going to play every single game and we just couldn't get that second striker in because the people available, there's a reason they're going to come and sit on the bench. And I think it's going to be similar now because they're not going to get in ahead of Robbie and they're not going to get in ahead of Wilson unless one of them's injured, which granted we're playing a lot of games. Do you know what I mean? I don't see who we're going to get. I think what we might try and do is get in this winger, whether it's Katomo or another, and then maybe a youngster who can sort of play across the front line maybe. I mean, we had that in Mayenda, but we couldn't turn down the money. So I'd be surprised if we didn't bring someone in because that would leave us short and I can't see them doing that. But at the same time, I'm not sure the quality of who we're going to get as a third choice striker is going to be. Do you know what I mean?
I tell you what, I would not be surprised if we went back in for a certain Chelsea striker that we had on loan last season. That's my hot take.
I haven't got the brain cells left for that. Please, please, we can't.
No,
Enough of them died last time.
Well, we will leave everybody to ponder that potential transfer as we take a short break, and we'll be back after a couple of ads. Welcome back to Haway, the podcast. We've got the second part of today's Q&A episode for you today. Now, Liam at SAFC 1879_ has asked, with game 3, 4, and 5 being very tough, how important is Fulham on Sunday to avoid being bottom of the table after the following games? And Johnny, after Fulham, if you need some reminding, we've got Brentford away, Arsenal at home, Man City away. Now, I do think at the start of the season, statistically, we had the hardest start when the rank, when you're playing teams who finished in certain positions last season. I do think we had the hardest start when it was kind of independently ranked. It's a daunting set of fixtures coming up, isn't it? But it's one that you want to have because otherwise you wouldn't be in the Premier League.
Oh, yeah, look, I mean, I'd far rather be playing Brentford, Arsenal, Man City rather than, Gillingham, Shrewsbury, Fleetwood or whatever. Like, with the greatest of respect to the football pyramid, I'm happier where we are. Thank you very much. But I hate to say stuff like this because it makes us sound like certain other people in Roker Report. But we do need to.
Oh, we have to guess who it is now. Come on.
He's tall and he pretends to be a different nationality. But I do think that the way that we've, not just the result against Ipswich, but the manner of the defeat, I think does put some extra pressure on the Fulham game because we spoke in the first half, didn't we, about some of the things that we didn't like about the way that we played. And obviously a home game against a kind of expected to be about mid-table opposition, that to me feels like a truer test of where we actually are as a team this season and how we actually want to play. Because I think one of the things that we got wrong against Ipswich, and it's difficult to do this away from home, but we didn't dictate the game at all, really. I felt like we allowed Ipswich, or not even allowed, to be fair, because Ipswich were quite good, but Ipswich dictated how that game was going to go. And so we were sort of reacting, I think, for a lot of the game, hence why we maybe looked so clueless in possession at times, because if we had the choice, we wouldn't be doing that. We wouldn't be sitting on 60-odd% possession at times in the game. Whereas against Fulham, I expect it to be a bit more balanced, a bit more of an even contest in terms of, the balance between attack and defence that each team's going to go for. So that'll give us a better reflection of what this season's Sunderland team is going to look like, I think. And for that reason, it's that bit more important, again, to put in a good result and try and put in a good performance, and try and get a good result, because as you've laid out, those following fixtures are not the kindest. And after the opening Sunday, I am a bit scared of Brentford now. I'm going to be honest. They do look a pretty good unit still under Keith Andrews. So, it's not the end of the world if we don't get a result. We could, against Fulham, we could get turned over. It could be the same result as last season. And that still doesn't mean we're going to get bloody relegated or whatever. But it's just one of those things, isn't it? Like, even though it's early in the season, even though the league table means nothing at this point, really, it's not nice to see your team at the bottom of it. And that goes for us as the supporters. I'm sure it goes for the players as well. Even if it's like just a tiny little thought in the back of your mind that you're not really bothered about, you'd rather be looking at it and going, oh, we're quite high up there, rather than looking at it and going, oh, there's quite a lot of other names above us there, and there's not many below us. So yeah, it's as much about setting the tone as it is about anything else, really. It's not gonna impact which signings we can make. It's not gonna, no one's losing the job over a result against Fulham on the second game of the season. But yeah, I do think that it's the potential upsides are quite important this time round, just because of, we're all quite level-headed on here, but a lot of people are a lot more worried than we are about the transfer situation. And look, everyone's entitled to their own opinion and how they feel. So for those people, especially if you are sat there worried and concerned about the number of bodies in the door, the last thing you want is something else to start piling stress on top of you, like losing games. So I just think for the sake of like keeping the fan base together and on an even keel and a bit of confidence boost for the players, it's a massive game this weekend. Like, but I'm still confident anyway. I back us. I'm not. One result against Ipswich hasn't got us thinking we're going to go into every game and get 3-0. You know what I mean? It's not the end of the world.
And that Fulham game, I think it's important that in any season that you start your home campaign off well. And we all want to see Sunderland come flying out the blocks. Be that quote best version of ourselves. Show everybody that we've still got what we had last season, and put on a bit of a performance. And the players, to some extent, they put a little bit of pressure on themselves after the Ipswich game, where they maybe were a little off the pace, and I think it's fair to say that. But the players have put a little bit of pressure on themselves. Everybody's turning up to the ground on wanting to see Sunderland play well and wanting to see Sunderland get 3 points. And when you look at those fixtures coming up, it's it's never going to be a must-win at this stage of the season. It literally can't be. It would be nice to get 3 points, wouldn't it? And
I mean,
when I look, I think. I'll chuck this in and
you just finish your question. Sorry.
I was 4 points. I'll be quite content after 5 games with 4 points. I think that'll be a decent haul. So it was always going to be tough.
Yes, and I agree with you. I think I was thinking 4 points from them too would be outstanding. To be honest, going to a promoted side away from home was always going to be difficult, and because we were in that boat last year, weren't we, where we wanted to get our campaign off to a good start. And I think I'm not like kind of worried. It doesn't worry me about the next 3 fixtures are going to be difficult. It doesn't worry us, to be totally honest with you, because I think kind of the questions the ladders asked the questions kind of already kind of at peace with the fact we're going to lose all 3. Whereas I don't think we'll lose all 3 of them games. It's going to be difficult, don't get us wrong, but I don't think we'll lose all 3. But I'd rather look at it that it's our first home game, and we want to get what was most important about our season last season was our home form. And I want to get off to a good start home against a side which I think we'll probably be in and around in the league table, like we were last year, really. Inside who's not going to Fulham might struggle because they have lost a lot of players, lost a lot of goals in Harry Wilson and that, and the striker who went to Wolves, and I can't remember his name.
Raul Jimenez.
That's the one. I knew that's the one. But they lost a lot of goals there. They accounted for 50-odd% of their goals last season. So that's a lot to replace. So, but I think they'll be in and around us, and I think what we need to do, especially with Europe this season, is beat the teams in and around us at home, because we'll be fine then. You know what I mean? So, I'm more like kind of going off. I'd rather us win because it's our first home game than I'd rather us win because we've got 3 games which are going to be difficult. But like I say, I mean, you take every. I don't, and this is the good thing about what Register Bristol do. He'll not be thinking about, we've got to win this because we've got Arsenal, Man City, and Brentford. He'll be thinking we need to get off to a good start home, and he'll be taking that game in its merit, and then he'll think about Brentford away Monday, which is what I'll be thinking about. I'm not thinking about these 3 fixtures.
I guess the thing that comes into that, I would say that we're more likely to pick something up in those 3 games if we get a positive result against Fulham. because you've got that confidence bounce, haven't you, which is hugely important. Now, Sam, I'm going to come to you on a different topic altogether. So Mackamin Mockham has said the current squad, despite the result against Ipswich, is the best of our lifetimes. There you go, statement, not question. Which former player from any era would you add to this team to improve it? Now, we all know what Johnny's going to say, aren't we? He's going to go to Johnny soon with this, when there's going to be a certain very handsome Swedish chap who Johnny probably has a tattoo of on his chest. But Sam, who would you pick from any era who you've seen play for Sunderland to add to this current squad?
I think the obvious one for me is, just to put it out there beforehand, I'd never saw Kevin Phillips play. That's why I'm not going to say Kevin Phillips before everyone starts typing in the comments. I think Defoe for me would be great. The idea of him just Robbie bouncing balls off his chest to Defoe, I could sit and watch that all day. I've been trying to think, because like with all this chat about a winger, I'm trying to think who in my lifetime is the best.
It's slim pickings, isn't it, Sam?
Yeah. It's yeah. So I wasn't going to say him, but I slagged him off earlier, so I'm just going to say Patrick Roberts.
I didn't really slag him off. I just said he didn't know what to do.
I could have said Clark, but to me, that slagged him off. I love Patrick Roberts.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
And who would you chuck in there?
Stefan Sessegnon.
I really
what we need,
that.
isn't it? That's what we need.
Yeah.
Him on the left.
Put him on the left, cut in, shoot.
Well,
He was when he played for us, wasn't he?
Imagine Sess trying to do the defensive work needed to cope in a Reggie team.
Well, he wouldn't do that, but he would be mine. He would be mine. I don't know, like, I'd probably say, I can't think of anyone else really, like, apart from the obvious ones. Now, like, obvious ones, Phillips is an obvious one. Defoe, as what Sam said, would be excellent. But I'm trying to think of like in this formation, because obviously you'd have to change it, wouldn't you, to put Defoe in. So I'll hoist this out there, but like Jack Clark's a good shout as well, because I would have Jack Clark. We mentioned this on the other one, didn't we? I'd have Jack Clark back in a heartbeat.
Well, Dick Advocat did put Jimmy in Defoe at left wing back on some occasions, didn't he? So there you could crowbar him in somewhere. But Johnny, Seb Larson?
Obviously, of course. But other than Seb, you know, if you put a gun to my head and forced us to pick somebody else, I'm still picking on sentiment mostly, but I think loan spell Fabio Barini, not permanent transfer Fabio Barini, would be like, we were talking, weren't we, before about how we could do with another striking option. And we talked about Maenda going, and like we could maybe do with like one of them type of players. Well, Barini, when he came, he could play off one side, or he could play through the middle, and you know, played through the middle and scored the opener at Wembley. Let's not forget. And for all the things you could say about Barini, especially when he came back on a permanent, but especially that first loan spell, he was a grafter and all. Like he would bust a gut for the team when he was playing. So I actually think like stylistically he'd work quite nicely in this team as well. But he's rubbish at free kicks and he hasn't got nice blue eyes, so we'll have Seb.
And going back a little bit further, I would chuck Alan Johnson and Nicky Sumby into the mix. I think with the even less of a defensive responsibility than they had in Peter Reid's 4-4-2 team, it could be pretty good. Right, I've got one here for you, Johnny. I'm deliberately going to give you this because it might get you into trouble. Martin Bell.
Fantastic.
Martin Bell has asked the question: should Hull be deducted 1 point for every time this season that they do the mauled by the Tigers thing? He says, I can take the chant, but I specifically mean the actions they do to the chant. Now, Johnny, as a video medium, we are on YouTube as well these days. I think you're going to need to demonstrate the action.
All right,
I'm glad you've asked Johnny this question.
would you like straight on? Would you like profile? I mean,
I think both works.
So you know, you're getting mauled by the Tigers like this, or you getting mauled by the Tigers like this. Oh, yeah, Mum. Yeah, I'm glad you're proud of us. Yeah, cheers, Dad. Yeah, proud of us as well. Yeah, right. Yeah, so that happened. I'm going to stick up for more by the Tigers a little bit, purely because can you imagine that Man United away end, that first game of the season, the pure and sheer rage that must have been going through all of their veins as they saw the entirety of the home end stand up and do that to them, singing More by the Tigers, while you're getting beat 2-0 off a promoted Hull, and all the trains back to Manchester get cancelled. Like, that is the perfect shit away day. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer fan base as well, other than the Mags, of course. So, yeah, I'll change my tune, mind, if when we play Hull, they start breaking out the, this against us as well. But, seeing it against anybody else, magnificent. Let's just never, ever, ever let them do it at the Stadium of Light, or we might have to condemn the ground and start again.
Can I just very quickly say as well, if any Sunderland fan are thinking you're getting scratched by the cats, please don't do it, because I am not doing that.
Oh, cheers for the solidarity. And now it's not just me looking like a tit this episode.
I had a really surreal moment when I was watching that game. I had it on the iPad next to us and I had it on silent. I just glanced around. I saw the whole crowd doing that with no sound on. And for a few seconds, it did take me.
Did you get a little bit discombobulated there, Marla? What's going on?
Well, I just saw the end of the parallel universe and everything is just gone completely mental.
And then you looked at the scoreline and you thought, I am in a parallel universe.
I am indeed, that's right. Right, we are going to move on. And Sam, I'm going to come to you first on this one. Pityaka has asked, if you could bring any of the players on a lad's holiday, who would it be? Where would you go? And what would you get up to? In my head there, I sounded a bit like Cilla Black on Bloody Blind Date. What's your name? Where do you come from? Where would it be? And what would you get up
to? I've got a little bit of a cop-out answer. I would, and also it sort of doesn't count because he's not a player, but basically I would just ask Roy Keane whatever he wants to do. And then just follow him around, stand behind him, hide behind him, and just see where the night takes us.
Excellent. I'm sure Aquino would be well up for that. Telling the bartenders to do the job and all sorts of stuff. Johnny, where would you take Seb Larson?
Well, me and Seb would be going for a romantic getaway on some sort of lovely Caribbean beach somewhere. So I don't know if he's lads' holiday material. Out the current squad, I'd definitely take Simon Moore. Because was it him and Patterson just necking pints and singing chants in was it O'Neill's in London after the playoff final? Like, I bet you he's good value on a night out or two. And as well, he's a very good looking chap as well as Simon Moore, so he can be the tall, good looking one that brings in the crowd of lasses, and then I'll just be there next to him. They'll not even see me when they come in, then just bang right. Now you have to talk to us because you're around Simon, so that's it. That's me way in.
Ant, who are you taking and where?
Probably, at the same kind of lines of Johnny, that I'd probably take someone who's very good looking. So I'd like fit in. So I'll go for Omar already because he's, nice looking lad.
You'll not be the bouncers' friends, will you? Taking Omar with you around lads' holiday.
Take Omar already. We'll go and. We'll have a lads' holiday at Magaluf or somewhere. We'll have a few deals.
This question reminded me of a story that Rob Mason told on the pod about a year ago. And he was with the club on the pre-season tour of America. And it was when Julio was playing for us. And Julio had been able to sign for us by virtue of having an Italian passport. And he was travelling on his Italian passport. And the club was saying, just remember, Julio, when you go through customs, you're from Italy. You're Italian. So anyways, he repeated the message to Julio on countless occasions. Got to border control in America. Whereabouts in Italy are you from? It was Buenos Aires.
Brilliant. Seb would never.
Right.
I can remember when I played Sunderland League a fair few years ago when I could kick a football, and we had a ringer with us because he was like, we were short. We had a ringer, and he was called M. Smith, Mark Smith. He was called, and we'd said to him because he was on the bench for us. He was the only sub. One of the lads got injured. We'd said to him for the whole day that his name was, I think it was Tom King or something or other, something along those lines. They were like, oh, like Kingy. Like even we were calling him when we were getting warmed up, we were calling him everything. And the first thing he did, he came on, he put a proper crunching tackle in. Referee coming out, yellow card. What's his name? He went M. Smith. I was like, oh, even when the referee was going over to him, we were like, Kingy. He's like M. Smith. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. There's a fine.
Brilliant. Right, we are going to round off with one, and it's more of a, well, there's a question in here, but it kind of brings us back to down to earth, looking forward to the Fulham game, and obviously the reaction online, particularly to the Ipswich game. And Sunderland Till I Die has asked, why has a predictable meltdown started so quickly? 1 game, 2 errors, 1 defeat. Chill your boots. Plenty more games to come. I think, Johnny, that's a good thing to remember for all of us heading into the Fulham game, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the reason for why is I think it's 90% down to the summer transfer business and the perceived slowness and lack of activity, which, again, you can have your own opinion on that, agree or disagree. I personally think that just trust them and be patient. They built this team in the first place and got us into Europe. They know what they're doing. But then, that doesn't help matters when you have an opening day defeat against a promoted team. But yeah, as the question says, it's 1 defeat, it's 2 silly individual mistakes. Again, it's easy to do this with any result you ever have. But you look back on that, I think you said it earlier, Martin, if Brobby scores that chance after 4 minutes, which probably more often than not he does, probably win the game. If he scores one in the second half, probably win the game. If we don't make even just one of the 2 stupid mistakes, we at least take a point out of the game, you think. It's the fine margins in the Premier League, and we were on the right side of them plenty last time out. And so far this time out, in the 1 game we've played, we've ended up on the wrong side of it, but that's going to happen, We lost to Burnley away last season. We dropped all 6 points to Fulham, sorry. We drew games we should have won and we lost games we should have drawn. It's going to happen. It'll happen to every team in every single season. So there's no need to panic about it. At the end of the day, right, this is how I've managed to cope with that result over the weekend and keep my head on is, would you rather lose a game where arguably you're at least as good as them and if not maybe should have won, maybe on the strength of chances, if not for individual mistakes? That's the one scenario. Or you rock up, get outclassed, take a pasting and get sent home going, well, we definitely should have lost that game because we were crap. The first one probably feels worse in the moment because it's that sense of what should have been. But it's a hell of a lot easier to fix a couple of daft individual mistakes like that than it is to try and, rework a whole defence or, tear up your plan and start again. So I'm calm about it. I'm relaxed. As we said before, we've got the Fulham game where it's a massive opportunity to get things back on track and get people smiling again. And no one will be talking about Portman Road in a couple of months, as long as we've strung some decent results together in the meantime. So, people will chill the boots a little bit once the window shuts because they always do. Everyone's always het up by transfers and the prospect of £50 million players and all that. But once we're into the proper, we've got this 3-week international break coming up, which I'm really happy about. But once we're past that and we're into the proper, the Thursday, Sunday, which we'll be experiencing this season, it'll just be about the results and it'll be a game by game thing, and people will be more on an even keel, I hope.
And it's interesting, Johnny raised the transfer activity has been a reason. I actually think a lot of the talk from the media about us potentially struggling, being favourites for relegation, second season syndrome, even though we know that's not necessarily a thing, blah, 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 blah. I think all of that negative talk from outside has had an effect. It's kind of natural that it has an effect to some extent. And I think that makes it even more important that as a collective, we are just a bit calmer and stick together. Like, if we don't stick together, who's going to bloody stick together? So, I think it's so important. Hopefully we have a lovely result on Sunday. We make a couple of 50 million quid transfers in the meantime, and everything's a wonderful, lovely, hunky-dory place, isn't it? But it's important that we stick together, because if we don't stick together, nobody is going to, are they?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're bang on, and you're seeing, like, I mean, I don't care what pundits say. I really don't. It's just, the Jamie Carragher stuff. I think he's just got a problem against Sunderland, because he always predicts us to go down. You know what I mean? And we did it last year. We defied the odds, and we stayed up, and quite comfortably. And I think we'll do the same again. And one defeat's not going to, one defeat against Ipswich isn't going to sort our season out. You know what I mean? And as Johnny said before, I totally agree with what he said. Had we gone and lost 3 or 4-0, had we been, like, wide open, had we been, mauled by the Tigers and all that stuff, you probably would be a little bit more worried. But the fact was, yes, we didn't play very well, but Ipswich didn't beat us. We kind of beat ourselves on Saturday, and those mistakes, I think, they'll be ironed out straight away for Sunday. It will be. And you're right, but it's happened quite a lot, hasn't it? It's kind of stemmed from the League One stuff, where when we went on a few bad runs in League One, it was straight away, well, get the manager sacked. We should be beating everybody in this league and all that stuff. And then I think maybe even second season in the Championship, but it didn't go our way. There was a turn, wasn't there? And I think just people are a little bit impatient. I think that's been coming in though since COVID. I find that with everybody though. I think everyone's just a little bit less patient now. So yeah, you're right. We need to stick together. Who gives a shit about underlying stats and all that palaver? You know what I mean? I've always said this: the only stat that matters in football to me is the end result. I don't care how we play. I don't give a shit about XG. I don't care about where if we had 3 more corners, we would have scored 3 more goals or whatever it is like that. You know what I mean? Or if someone passes to him more often. I don't care. I don't care how we play. I don't care, like, what if buts and whys and all this stuff. I just care about us winning. You know what I mean? And if we win on Sunday, everything will be forgotten, won't it? Everything will be forgotten if we win on Sunday. Like, Saturday it'll be out the window. But you're right. We need to stick together, because look what's happened to this club over the last few years when the fans have got behind the team. Got us through that playoff season, the playoff campaign. Fans absolutely magnificent. Same right against Coventry. Same again at Chelsea last year when we got into Europe. When it does happen and the stadium's all at one, there's nothing better. There's absolutely nothing better. There's no atmosphere like it. And I think it is just important that we do that and just remind ourselves that, look, it's one game. It's one game. Like this when this pod comes out, we'll be a day or so away from finding out who we're playing in Europe for the first time in most of our lives. You know what I mean? Embrace it, enjoy it. It's one game of football. Yeah. You know what I mean?
No, I think you're absolutely bang on. And I think when everyone's together at Sunderland, that's the club's biggest strength. And that's the part that we can all play. I did see Johnny prick up there at Ant's mention of XG. You were dying to get into that conversation, weren't you, Johnny? But we haven't got time, mate. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I don't get ripped to shreds. Oh, I'm devastated about that.
Get mauled by the Tigers again. Right, I think we will end it there. So thank you to Sam, thank you to Johnny, thank you to Ant, and thank you to everybody who sent in questions, and thank you to everybody who's listened. You can send your questions for our next Q&A to Haway the podcast, SAFC @gmail.com, or look out for the post on X, which will come out, I think, on Monday, given that we are playing on Sunday. Goodbye from us.